And it is the Saturday Coffee Klatch with yours truly, Robert Reich. And Heather Lofthouse is going to be back with us next week. But we thought we'd try something a little bit different today. And I want to introduce to you two people who you may not know. One is Katie Milne, and Katie comes to us. She is our correspondent, our inequality media correspondent from Austin, Texas. Katie, hello.
Hello, Bob. How are you doing on this fine Saturday morning?
I'm doing just great. Thank you for being with us. And Vish Shankar, our correspondent, our inequality media correspondent from Madison, Wisconsin. And Vish, how are you today?
That's right. Calling in from the greatest city in America, Madison, Wisconsin. Still pretty warm and sunny. We haven't gotten a real fall yet.
Did you say the greatest city in America? I mean,
Yep,
I'm taking
that's
a little umbrage. And then most of you know Michael Lahanas Calderon, who is in the East Bay, in Berkeley. You're not in the East Bay. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be back.
So I thought, you guys, we would talk today about, obviously, as we normally do in the Coffee Klatch, what's happened during the week, but particularly in terms of context. You know, what is it that it means? If you take, for example, the indictment of James Comey, which just occurred, I mean, what do we need to know about that? What does it signify? What's important about it? And then the shutdown, the looming federal shutdown. What's the context there? And then finally, the tariffs. Suddenly Trump does another tariff explosion. And by the way, Jeffrey Epstein is off, once again, off the main highway of the American mind, and we may be talking about that too. But just to start with regard to James Comey, Michael, what's your sense of that?
Well, it's not great. I think I'll state the obvious. If I remember correctly, it's generally not a common practice for the Department of Justice to seek an indictment against a president's political enemies, right?
Well, that's right. Now here, I confess I'm old enough to remember in the wake of Richard Nixon, there was a lot of kind of reform. We called it reform in those days, in which the White House was going to be completely independent of the Justice Department because Nixon had his own enemies list, and there was Nixon made use of the Justice Department to go after his enemies. And so it was very important right after Nixon and beyond Nixon. I mean, very important until this present administration that there be no use of the Justice Department in personal, political, vindictive ways.
And Bob, is this the first time? What else has the administration been doing recently in terms of weaponizing the Justice Department? Because this isn't the first time that they've kind of crossed a line. So what else has been going on?
Well, Katie, this is a really big deal because here we know that the original U.S. attorney could not bring an indictment against Comey because there just wasn't enough evidence, and the grand jury obviously didn't want to do it, and there was an element of integrity. I mean, lawyers are supposed to have some integrity. Lawyers who work for the government, lawyers who are lawyers. I mean, there is a code of justice and a kind of professional code. And even the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Maryland, who was appointed by Trump, said, no, I'm not going to do it, and which Trump said, well, fire him. I'm going to put my own person in there. Again, I mean, the criterion is somebody who's going to do what I want to do. And he then said to Pam Bondi, I think it was last week, he said, you must do it now, because the statute of limitations is running out. And so, I mean, this is a huge deal. This is a naked power play, Katie. I have not seen anything like this since, even Nixon disguised his enemies list and his prosecution of enemies behind some sort of gloss. This is undisguised. This is out for everybody to see.
And I mean, I'm kind of curious, Bob, how do you see this fitting in with how Trump views clearly certain people as above the law? I mean, this is coming the same week we find out that Tom Homan, the immigration czar, was taking $50,000 bribes. And I mean, we've had Trump since Inauguration Day offering these insane pardons to January 6th rioters and all sorts
Now,
of
wait a minute,
corporate
Vish, let
criminals.
me interrupt you for a second. How do you know Tom Homan was taking $50,000 bribes? There was no indictment. There was no criminal finding. So, Vish, where are you getting your information?
Well, I saw this reported in MSNBC, which I
Oh, well,
guess our dear
MSNBC.
leader.
Who can trust
Yeah.
The
MSNBC?
failing liberal
MSDNC.
MSNBC.
Well, look at, I mean, there was a lot of evidence in the public domain, and it did appear on MSNBC and some other networks and newspapers that Homan was taking bribes, but the Justice Department pulled the investigation. And that's, I think, Vish, what you're getting at. This is a pattern. If it's somebody who's a friend of Trump or somebody who's an ally, you don't investigate. If it's somebody who has done something horrible, like the January 6th rioters, you give them a pardon. You basically get them out of jail free. And if it's somebody who is an enemy, and again, this is the most extreme example, James Comey, you actually have a criminal indictment of them. I mean, this is.
And not to reopen ancient history, Bob, but James Comey, just for those who maybe weren't following politics in 2016, very lucky souls, those ones, is one of the people who's arguably most responsible for Donald Trump winning the first time around, isn't he? Because he was responsible for the email investigation that, to some degree, sunk Hillary Clinton's candidacy in the last closing weeks of that election, right?
That's right. Comey was a Trump loyalist. And it's easy to forget that. The only reason he turned around, or at least Trump thought that Comey was no longer a Trump loyalist, has to do with the Russian investigation in that first term, in which Trump basically thought anybody who was involved in that investigation, particularly the head of the FBI, who cooperated with Congress, was against him. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. This is a not only a malignant narcissist, but this is a paranoid person who, if you're not actually with him, you are against him, and if you're against him, you are really targeted.
Yeah, and I think it was really disturbing to see yesterday that Trump was threatening that there would be others. I mean, again, not unexpected, right? But this is just more of the same, and it doesn't seem like it's going to end because nobody seems interested in stopping it or has the power to stop it. I mean,
Well,
I raised that to the group.
Let's get back to that. Katie, you were just about to say something.
Yeah, a good segue from what Michael was saying. So what can our opposition party do beyond, yet again sending another strongly worded letter, which I'm sure is striking the fear of God into Trump and his authoritarian enablers? So what, if any, mechanisms do Democrats have to push back on this?
Well, what is to stop the Democrats from holding hearings? I mean, maybe they have to hold the hearings in another building. I mean, maybe, but Democrats, Senate Democrats, could hold hearings on everything that's going on and attract a huge amount of press attention, but they're not doing it. Why are they not doing it? Democrats, stand up and be counted. The media would love to have a lot of members of Congress and people in the administration and people in former administrations. And, a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions, and they have evidence, and they have, some people who were in the FBI before who are, maybe they want to talk. Maybe they're willing to talk. Why aren't the Democrats holding hearings? Anybody?
Well, I was just going to raise a small bit of credit. I think it was House Democrats who held a shadow hearing on a completely different subject a couple weeks ago. I think that was Pramila Jayapal who did that. And I think the issue was, like you said, to some degree, the media, even if Democrats put all of their effort into it, which I think they could be doing more, I don't know that they would cover it. I think that's where I would be skeptical, because Trump is just this giant vortex of news creation that they continue to be unable to escape.
Well, I
And
think you're right. If it's a small group of House Democrats holding a hearing, it's not news. But if you have all of the Senate Democrats, there's a huge difference. Remember, they're the houses are gigantic, messy organization. The Senate, though, Senate Democrats, you've got a number of them. They are very prominent in their states. Many of them are prominent nationally, and if they held a hearing, I think there would be a lot of attention given to what Trump is doing, the politicization of the Justice Department as a whole, and I think they should.
fair enough. Well, there are a lot of other things that are happening in Congress this coming week. Maybe something that we should all be a little worried about. I know all three of us wanted to ask you a little bit about the shutdown that is looming. And I don't know, do you have any thoughts? You've been through a couple, right?
I have been. I've been through several shutdowns. I would not wish this on anybody. It's terrible because a shutdown means essentially there is no money to pay anybody to continue doing what they believe in. I mean, most of the people who are government employees have enough education, enough credentials. They could do better on the outside of government in the private sector, but they've chosen to be there in the government because they believe in whatever it is they are doing. And a shutdown not only means they're not going to be paid, but it means that they don't even know when they are going to be paid again. I mean, this is chaos. And then, of course, all of the public that is not getting the services that the public is entitled to get, that Congress has, appropriated. It's an awful thing. I went through it at the Federal Trade Commission in the late 1970s, and I went through it again when I was Secretary of Labor in 1994 and 1995. I think it was 1995. This is when Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton could not agree on a budget.
Well, I think Vishal, who's our Midwestern correspondent, is also traditionally our congressional correspondent. And Vishal, do you have any sense of what the Democratic strategy is around this shutdown? I mean, what have we seen so far?
Well, it's very interesting because, and I'm not one to usually give Schumer and Jeffries much credit, but to their very limited credit here, they are staking out a position that unless the Republicans agree to extend some of the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act that are about to expire and would send healthcare premiums skyrocketing, and unless they reverse some of those Medicaid cuts in the big ugly bill, they will not vote for a government funding bill. And I think that those are very reasonable demands. Donald Trump seems to think something else entirely. He's been tweeting wildly, or I should say truthing wildly about this.
No, he's not truthing.
Planned meeting.
Not truthing. He's
Truthing
whatever it is.
quotes.
It's not truthing. But Vish, just to pursue that a little bit, we've talked about this before. The Democrats are in fact using this pending shutdown.
Their leverage.
And the Republicans need, I think, about 8 Democratic votes in the Senate to get the money necessary to continue funding government. And the Democrats are saying, no, we're not going to do that unless you provide enough funding for the Affordable Care Act and for the Medicaid cuts so that something in the order of 24 million Americans will not have to pay substantially more than they're already paying for health care. In fact, a lot of them are going to be pushed out of health care, health insurance altogether because of the amounts that they're already paying more. I mean, even given what the Republicans have done so far, the typical person who is pushed off of the Affordable Care Act is now paying something in the order of $520 a month for health care. And that's, multiply that by the number of people who are going to be hurt by this, and you get a big chunk of the American population.
Correct. And I think this is a fight that Democrats can win. I mean, we've seen since January, Trump is basically running the government like he's a dictator, and The reverse side of that is that the public, if they see the government shut down, they know who they're going to blame for it, and it's Donald Trump and all of his craven enablers in the Republican Party. I mean, I do want to flag because there was this memo this week from Russ Vought, who's the OMB director, basically threatening and saying if Democrats don't vote for our funding bill, we will start firing federal workers. And I think David Dayen made this point very excellently at the American Prospect. This has already been happening since January. They have been arbitrarily, through this Doge mania, firing federal workers and in several cases having to bring them back when they've fired people who were essential to public safety and key functions of the federal government. So, I think Democrats should call this.
This is a very, very important point, and it has to do with who's going to be blamed. I mean, let's assume that there's going to be a shutdown. It's going to be, the funds run out on the 30th, the end of the 30th of September, midnight the 30th of September, which is just around the corner. Assume there's a shutdown. My experience with shutdowns is that the big question politically is who is blamed? Is it the Republicans? Is it the Democrats? Is it the president? Is it Congress? And in this instance, I think you are right, Vish. I think that if the Democrats stick to their guns and say it over and over and over, our condition for joining you is you fully fund the Affordable Care Act. You make people, you reduce the costs of health care as they should be reduced for 20 million Americans. Then I think they are in a very good position. It puts the Republicans in a corner.
And there is precedent for this. I mean, I don't know if folks remember, there were two shutdowns in the first Trump administration in 2018. They're both about, I think, the border wall and DACA. And Democrats held fairly firm in those, and the public resoundingly blamed Trump for shutting down the government for these crazy projects like the border wall. So yeah, I think Democrats need to really stick to their guns here. I think they're all united with the exception of John Fetterman, which the less said about him, the better.
Well,
but
that's right. But
it's time for Democrats to fight.
But let me ask our Texas representative here, our Texas correspondent, Katie. Trump has the bully pulpit. He has a megaphone. He's got Truth Social. He posts all the time. The Democrats really don't have a united voice, a clear megaphone, a clear way of messaging in Texas. Where you are, I mean, how are people even hearing what the Democrats are saying?
That's a great question. Couldn't agree more that the party as a whole, not really hearing a ton from leadership, but I think there are a couple of representatives who actually are meeting the moment and speaking about this. Shout out to my own rep, Greg Casar. He's the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and he and the CPC, I think, have been really leading the charge on not just the shutdown fight, but messaging and, actually opposing and fighting back against the Trump administration as a whole. So I think, the leaders should look to those rising stars in the party and people who have actually been talking about this for longer than just the past 2 weeks and kind of let them take the reins and, fight back a little more.
Well, is the media going to be, even if the Democrats were united and the message was actually honed very well, and even if it got through to Texas, and Katie, you're in Austin, Texas, which some people say is not real Texas, but even if it got through to the rest of Texas or the rest of Red America, is the media going to carry that message? And this gets me back to another thing that happened this week with regard to Jimmy Kimmel and a lot of the affiliates of ABC not even carrying his monologue. So is that something we should worry about? Michael, do you have any thoughts?
Even with 20% of the country not getting Kimmel's show, he still got, I think, 4 times the audience that he normally would that night. And, upwards of 20 million views on the monologue on YouTube, which, obviously goes above any of the broadcast controls.
This is a big deal. Upwards of 20 million views on YouTube. Kimmel's usual audience is 1.1 million for his normal monologue before Trump got involved and Brandon Carr. And then you had over 6 million who actually saw it and heard it. And then on top of that, you had another 20 million who heard it or saw it on YouTube. I mean,
and probably countless millions more, because again, this is, the digital ecosystem that we work in here at Inequality Media. You're getting clips of the full 30-minute monologue that also get millions of views on TikTok, on Instagram Reels, on YouTube Shorts. I mean, if the point was to quash Kimmel's voice, unsurprisingly, this kind of did the opposite.
So going back to our question about can the Democrats get their message through with regard to a pending shutdown, or for that matter, anything else? Did we learn anything from what happened with Disney and Kimmel and Brendan Carr that is encouraging or discouraging in terms of getting the message out, getting the message through? What do you think?
Yeah,
I think it's encouraging.
Yeah, Katie.
Yeah,
No, go ahead, Katie.
I definitely agree, Vish. I think it's encouraging, and I think it shows that people are ready to take action if they're organized around it. I mean, after the announcement that he was suspended, a ton of people started canceling their Hulu subscriptions, their Disney Plus subscriptions. Disney stock started to plummet, which means it just goes to show that these corporations will always care about their bottom lines more than taking a political stance, and that's for better or for worse. And I think it also speaks to the danger of corporate consolidation in media, for sure, because now you have just a handful of billionaires, many of whom are aligned with Trump. They're controlling what we see, what we read, what we watch. And then it also just gives the rest of us less choice in what we can access. It's like, okay, ABC took them off the air. They're owned by Disney, who also owns ESPN, who also owns Hulu, who wants to own another streaming platform. So it's really, I think it's kind of, this is exactly what these like market dominant firms want, is they want to be able to control so many aspects of our lives that if we want to take a stance, if we want to vote with our dollar, our choices are so limited, because it's like, okay, let me just go cancel Disney Plus and Hulu and ESPN and not watch this and not do this. So I think it really speaks to the fact that like monopolization and authoritarianism go hand in hand, because once we don't have access to other independent voices, once we're forced into participating in these monopolies, we don't have a voice in,
Katie,
our economy and our democracy.
Excuse me for interrupting. I thought you were going in a slightly different direction at first, because I thought you were saying that, well, with regard to Disney, it looked like the people were breaking through. Disney made a 180-degree change, and that was because it was so exposed to consumers, and a consumer boycott was really having an effect. But you now are also alerting us to a counter trend, which is that there is so much media concentration. I don't know if you saw this. Matt Stoller had this figure last week, and that was that in 1983, 90% of the media ownership was in the hands of 50 separate owners. That is, 50 owners had 90% of media, and now 90% of the media is in the hands of just five big media owners. And that substantiates, or that underscores, the point you're making, Katie, and that is it's much easier for a demagogue to control speech if you have just a few levers, a few concentrated media places where that demagogue has got to suppress speech. So I don't know whether to be encouraged or discouraged.
Absolutely. And the former Federal Trade Commission Chair, Lena Khan, she has spoken a lot and worked a lot at length about addressing corporate concentration. And we actually have a great video with her about this very topic, about how monopolies reduce our economic freedom. So everyone should go check it out after this.
Well, we should check it out. And by the way, you guys have been doing a fabulous job. Let me just say that. I should have said that earlier. You, Inequality Media team, you're just great. And let me just say to people out there that if you didn't know it, I'm pretty old. And these guys are not. I mean, I'm not going to embarrass you in asking you your age. Michael, last week we talked about you being 50 years younger than me, and Katie and Vish, you're pretty close to 50 years younger than me. And so, your views on what's happening are very important. Your understanding of the context is very important because you're inheriting this mess. Not to put
That's cheer.
So
That's very
exciting.
cheery. We're so
Yeah.
excited.
Love that for us.
We're thrilled.
Love that for us.
Good. I'm glad that you're thrilled. But it does get us also to this whole theme of dictatorship, democracy, dictatorship, because I think that not only with regard to James Comey and using the Justice Department for his own personal ends, but all the things that Trump is doing that are about personal vindictiveness or personal acquisition of more money or personal sort of assertion of power. It's not about the public interest. It's not about his vision of what's good for America. It's all about what's good for Trump, and people are beginning to see that. Now, this is my faith. This is my silver lining. This is my cup half, or maybe an eighth full speaking. I want to know what you guys think about this. I mean, do you think that Trump is overstepping, that the people are beginning to see that he's all about his own, malignant, narcissist needs? Yes?
Absolutely.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I 100% agree. You see this actually in a lot of the public polling that's being done on Trump's approval. I mean, not only is his general approval rating really in the toilet, but on specific issues. I mean, he's underwater by double digits on the economy, which used to be one of his strongest issues in the first term, and even immigration, which is one of his strongest issues way back in January, because the public has seen what his immigration policy looks like in practice. It's shipping innocent people off to foreign gulags. And if I could just make one more point, we're also seeing this in the special elections and a lot of the off-cycle elections we've seen this year. Democrats have been overperforming in many districts, particularly in red states, swing states. Right here in Wisconsin, we had the Supreme Court election by significant margins, and I think that's a very good sign for what we're going to see next year in the midterms.
And Jish, the special elections you're referring to, there were a few special elections very recently where the Democrat, you say, overperformed, just translated into non-political speech. That means the Democrat did much better than was expected given Trump's performance in that same area. Do you recall? I don't want to put you on the spot, but you do recall anything about those special elections?
I don't recall the exact numbers, but this week there was a state Senate race in Georgia where, the Democrats did come up short. The Republicans won it, but they really shaved down the margin by which Republicans won that district. And it was a pretty deep red district. So even in these deep red pockets, you're seeing a lot of pushback. The big one, of course, was the one in Arizona, the special election to fill Grijalva's seat with his daughter. She, I think, performed much better than Harris and her father had last November. So, I mean, you're seeing this. What's interesting is you're seeing this everywhere. You see it in deep blue districts. You saw it in Florida a few months ago where they had special elections to fill the Gates and Walz seats. The Supreme Court election is probably the best example in Wisconsin. I mean, Elon Musk spent more money than has ever been spent in a state judicial race in American history. And his candidate got blown out of the water by 11 points. I mean, there is something real awakening in the American public.
Awakening. I love that term. The awakening. The sleeping giant is awakening. I think that that's absolutely right. I mean, I think that, particularly this week, when you think all the things that are going on that reveals him to be the dictator, the tyrant that he really is. It's not just, blue, dyed-in-the-wool Democrats who are seeing this. But I wanted to get and touch on the tariffs, because this is something, Katie, you were talking about, the economy and how a lot of people are waking up to the fact that he was elected on the premise that he was going to bring down costs. That's what people wanted more than anything else. You look at the exit polls, they were mostly concerned about prices being so high. And what's happening now, these tariffs that he's putting on everything unilaterally, just arbitrarily. This week, if you're putting, maybe you're doing a kitchen, you're remodeling your kitchen. Is anybody remodeling their kitchen?
There's no
Nobody.
chance any of us
We're the
actually
wrong
own our
generation
own
to ask.
home.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're not
There's no
remodeling.
way we do
I
not
happen to
own
know
homes,
people who are
Bob.
remodeling their kitchens, and you're modeling. If you are remodeling your kitchen, what he did under the rubric of national security is he puts this huge tariff unilaterally on every kitchen appliance, not appliance, but every kitchen
Cabinet.
Cabinet is the word that comes from any place around the world. I mean, national security? What's the connection?
I was going to say, I think the timing of these additional tariffs, which are absurd, it's anywhere from like 40% to 100% of tariffs on all these random goods. I think the timing is also fascinating while we're facing a government shutdown over insane premium hikes for healthcare costs. I mean, some people are going to see their premiums go up by more than $1,200 next year if these subsidies aren't extended. So I mean, it's not funny, but it is funny that he ran on lowering costs, and all in the span of 1 week, he's like, okay, your healthcare bills are going to go up by a ton if you even keep your health coverage, and I'm slapping tariffs on a whole new round of goods that you use in your day-to-day life. So I think
absolutely. I think that's why the polls are dropping. That's why we're seeing, Vish, what you're talking about. That's why the special elections are going in such an extraordinary direction toward the Democrats. A lot of people are saying he's a dictator. I don't want a dictator. And B, he's putting huge costs on me in terms of healthcare and everything else that's coming from abroad. And I didn't buy this. I thought we were going to get the opposite of this kind of these kinds of costs. Michael?
And I also really want to stress, I mean, the 100% tariff on certain kinds of pharmaceutical products, I mean, that's going to be what I think impacts a lot of people in this country. Those of us without kitchen cabinets to renovate, or those of us who, unlike perhaps certain presidents, have 1 million bathrooms to fill in their mansion with bathroom vanities. But regardless, it also speaks to the dictatorial nature, the decrees that are continuing to come out on Truth Social, right? Because he was saying, you have to do this by next Wednesday, but also you're exempt if if you have a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant under construction or you're breaking ground. So, I mean, if I'm a pharmaceutical executive, I'm just going to start a factory maybe that never gets finished, right? I mean, all you have to do is meet the letter of the random decree and not really, he'll probably forget by next week, right?
And that's right. The letter of the random decree is you break ground for a factory in the United States and you're free. You're free of the tariff. And so everybody's going to say, yes, okay, we're going to get that little lot and we're going to break ground. We'll have a little breaking ground ceremony, and that's great. And who knows what he's going to say next week anyway. I think one of the problems that the American economy is now suffering in terms of very dramatically low job growth, at the same time you have inflationary pressures, is a lot of companies are saying, I don't know what this guy's going to do next. I mean, how can we possibly plan for the future? How can we make investments in additional capacity or jobs? Because it's all coming out of one person, one man. I was talking to a friend in Mexico on the phone just 2 days ago, and he was telling me that they can't. This is worldwide. This is obviously not the United States. You have manufacturers, you have companies around the world that are stopping. They are just stopping dead in their tracks. They don't know what to do because they don't know what is going to happen with their major market, which is the United States. And many of them are saying, well, we've got to find new markets, and we're going to make bigger investments in Europe and in China.
Yeah.
I mean, not surprising when you... Oh, go ahead, Katie. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I also think Trump's immigration agenda is having a role in that as well. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we saw this raid on a Hyundai plant in Georgia, where it's all South Korean workers. And they said that they were here illegally, and the South Korean government was outraged. I mean, they were shackled, like their hands to their feet. They were all like frog marched out and detained for days, no contacts with lawyers. And I mean, what foreign company is going to want to invest in a country where their workers might get rounded up and detained into a black box for who knows how long? So I think that also is playing a role.
Absolutely.
And some of those were workers who were there to advise Americans on building this new high-tech plant, right? I mean, they were invited by us as part of our industrial policy efforts from the previous administration.
So just to summarize, there's a kind of a split screen here. On the one side of the split screen, we've got a dictator, a kind of malignant narcissist who is kind of getting crazier and crazier and crazier, and doing things that everybody is saying, like Comey, like firing up these even higher 100% tariffs, and doing them all by himself. And nobody is consulted, and nobody even knows what he's going to do tomorrow. And on the other kind of side of the split screen, you got more and more Americans who are saying, we don't want this. We didn't buy this. Even though some of us voted for him, we want him out of there as fast as possible. So let me just ask the three of you, what do you think are the chances of Democrats not only taking the House and the Senate in 2026, but also having enough votes in the Senate to impeach this man? Vish?
Well, I always hate to predict elections because you never really know, and the last decade should tell us that. I think the best path to doing that is, and you've been writing about this on Substack recently, Bob, leaning into progressive economic populism as the antidote to Trump's authoritarian populism. And there's a ton of great candidates around the country who are doing that from the progressive flank. I mean, in Michigan, you've got Abdul El-Sayed, who's running a progressive campaign. In Maine, Graham Plattner, the former oyster fisherman, has really sort of electrified the state there to take on Susan Collins. And I mean, a lot of this goes back to Mamdani's win in New York. I mean, they're going to have the general election in a couple months there. But that's really sort of electrified the Democratic base, I think, in the right direction towards, taking back the House, hopefully taking back the Senate. In some states, they're going to have to get creative. You got Dan Osborne in Nebraska, who's running this sort of independent populist campaign. But, they really need to speak to what gets people engaged in politics, which is, these material issues. We've talked about it the whole show. Trump is flailing on the economy, and I think Democrats would do well to point that out, and not just point out that Trump is bad, but articulate what is our compelling alternative vision, what is our plan to make your lives better.
And that alternative vision, that compelling economic vision, you're saying is you're labeling as economic populism, but what does that mean? What does it actually mean? What's the message? We've talked about the message in terms of keeping the government from shutting down, but what's the message that Democrats now need to say? The people you are talking about around the country, Vish, who are Democrats who are getting it right.
Well, you can go issue by issue. I mean, healthcare, we've talked about that a lot on the show. You see the sort of problems with having a system that's dependent on these tax credits and government shutdown. I mean, why not fully embrace Medicare for all, a single payer healthcare system that would deliver better health outcomes and, be cheaper overall?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's communism.
$15 minimum wage. Yeah, well, that's probably run into, huh?
Well, I look at you're pushing on an open door. Absolutely, and paid family leave. I mean, people need paid family leave. We're the only advanced country that doesn't have it, and also child care and elder care. And Mamdani in New York is talking about child care and talking about financing it by increasing taxes on the very wealthy. Anything else we just in our final minutes here we want to put on the table?
Stronger unions.
Yes.
Stronger unions. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And the reason you want stronger unions is because you want to give people more bargaining leverage to get better wages and better working conditions. Let's not kid ourselves. That's what it's all really about. Mm-hmm. This comes down to power.
Countervailing power is a great man once said.
Countervailing power. That's right. You can't get much more power in terms of concentrated, big monopolistic corporations. And that is exactly what's happening. And Democrats, if they knew what they needed to do, would be taking on that kind of monopolistic power. And they would also be talking about antitrust law, breaking up these big media conglomerates and other conglomerates. Let me just thank the three of you again for this. I didn't give you much notice. In fact, Vish, when did I ask you, or when were you asked to do this?
I was flying back from Berkeley and I got off at my layover at the Phoenix, Arizona airport to an email from Michael saying that I would be on the Klatch. And I said, sure, why the hell not? I do want to quickly say to the audience, if people didn't like this, we'll just pretend the episode never happened. If they did, please let us know, and we will be renaming the program from the Coffee Klatch to the McClatchlin Group.
Oh,
Nice.
oh, I don't
cut.
know. I'm not sure I can possibly abide that. But thank you, Vish. And Katie, thank you. Michael, thank you. Also want to thank Jordan Alport, who's doing duty today behind the scenes. And I want to thank all of you. Just in terms of summarizing, this is a split screen phenomenon, not split screen in terms of these young guys over here and this old guy here. Let's split screen in terms of an old guy in the White House, born 10 days before me, really riding roughshod and continuing to ride roughshod over the Constitution, over our freedoms, over our needs, over what people expect from our government. And I think this is, and will go down historically as the week that people started waking up. The vast giant of America, the sleeping giant of America, who is normally sleeping, but does wake up occasionally, and woke up, and I saw it. I'm old enough to remember seeing the sleeping giant wake up during the Joe McCarthy communist witch hunts, and finally, in the form of Joseph Welch, who was representing the Army in the Army McCarthy hearings. Joseph Welch saying on television, and I was sitting there with my father, and Joseph Welch pointed to Joe McCarthy and said, "Have you no decency, sir? Have you no decency?" And that began to be the end of Joe McCarthy. Just saying it out loud, making sure people know that they're not alone, making sure that everybody knows that they are part of a majority, a vast majority, who is outraged at what is going on. On October 18th, there is going to be the second No King's Day demonstration, No King's Day 2.0. I hope you will participate. And I hope, again, you understand that the best antidote for your feelings of powerlessness, of anger, of despair, of stress, the best antidote for all of this is political activism. Because the more active you are, the more you are actually taking a role, taking a part in trying to reverse this situation, the calmer, the better you will feel personally, but also the better America will be, the better even the world will be. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Michael and Katie and Vish, thank you for participating. We'll see you next week.